I'm here at Internet of Things World 2017 with Mimi Spear, Vice President of the Internet of Things at VMware. Mimi, thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely.
Could you tell us a little bit about your organisation, what they do and what your role involves?
Absolutely. So VMware traditionally has been in the data center. We are the infrastructure, we're the virtualization, we're the management, monitoring, security of everything in the data center, whether it's a public cloud or a private cloud or the data center itself. And we also are responsible for managing many of the workforce devices, tablets, laptops, smartphones, etc. And that just generalizes what we've done in the past. But as we've entered into IoT, we realize that there's this new infrastructure and new devices that are all over the place that require a very similar type of technology to be able to manage, monitor, secure, and provide that reliability of what we provide in the data center. And so that is our focus in IoT, and my role is to really define our strategy and define our products and to build a business around IoT.
So you've spoken today about enterprise IoT. Could you tell us a little bit about what points you covered and what recommendations you made to your audience?
Absolutely. So the point I wanted to cover today is I really focused on scale. I wanted to make sure that, many companies today are focused on proof of concept. I mean, they really just need to get this thing going and try different things. But when our customers come to us, it very much is about when they're trying to scale, because that's where things get hard. So the focus of my keynote today was first, hopefully inspiring the audience about the opportunity with scale. I called it the magic of scale, because very simple IoT use cases at scale have a huge impact on industries. So I gave a couple examples, like in grocery, if you can change the degrees of your refrigeration by 1 degree, it can impact for one grocery 300,000 degrees worth of energy just for that one grocery store. So, the impact is so big. And so then I wanted to focus on what are some of the challenges you're going to face as you scale? So I talked a little bit about the complexity of the heterogeneous world that we have in IoT. I focused on what happens when you go from 100 devices to 100,000 devices and some of the things you really have to keep in mind. And then I also focused on security, but security in the point that there's a lot of IoT that is already happening, and a lot of those devices are not secure. And so I just gave some tips and my perspective and VMware's perspective on how you ultimately need to take on security in IoT.
And what are the first steps that an enterprise needs to take when it's considering rolling out an Internet of Things strategy?
So the first thing I always tell my customers is you need to be solving a mission critical objective. So you don't do IoT just to do IoT. You do IoT to accomplish something incredibly important in your business that's ultimately going to hit the goals of your business. So that's the first step. The second is, I think it's really important to define a prototype or a proof of concept. And I do think, I'm not a system integrator, but I do think for IoT, it's going to be important to have someone there to help you to make sure that you're making some good decisions, because there's so many different vendors out there. And, I do think there's a way to simplify how you can deploy IoT across your enterprise. But I think that it's going to require multiple different types of vendors together to make that happen. So identify what's important, and maybe it's a couple different things. Try a proof of concept, and then before you scale, make some really hard decisions on your architecture on how you're going to scale.
And are there any common mistakes that you see enterprises making when they try to adopt IoT? And what advice would you have for those enterprises?
Yeah, so I do see a lot of IoT happening just for the sake of it. So we talked to a customer, I will not name the name, an energy company, and it was their IT organization, and they just wanted to do IoT. So we said, what are you trying to achieve? And they just wanted to set up some cool, their smart meters. And I just think it's important, number one, to have a real purpose and goal. The other issue is, I think people think about the application plane, the data. How am I getting the data out of these devices, and what do I want to do with it? And they forget about what I'll call the control plane, which is how, as I scale, going to manage, monitor, secure all of these devices and be able to maintain this over time across all the IoT that I do for my enterprise.
Tell us a bit about VMware's software and services and how these benefit enterprises.
Yeah, so we just announced a new family of solution called VMware Pulse. VMware Pulse, the first product we brought to market is called VMware Pulse IoT Center. We're very much focused on that control plane. So we're doing what we've always done, and that is infrastructure. And what we look at kind of gateways and edge systems and these sensors, this is really new infrastructure that at the end of the day, the operations side of the house who's actually deploying it and the IT organizations must work together to be able to make sure that IoT is successful, it's secure, and it can be maintained over time. And so that is what our solutions are going to do. The first one is a console. It will be in the hands of both OT and IT, so the operations guys on the factory floor, on the oil rig, in the oil wells, in the hospitals, and IT, to have complete visibility and control over all of their devices and the software that goes onto those devices. And then a solution also monitors the devices so that if there's anything strange happening from an operational health of those devices, then they know about it. And this is very much still in the control plane in the infrastructure side, not that application plane. So that's the first product. And the second one, stay tuned. It will be very much about how IoT, you really have to look at the architecture of IoT and where the data is going to reside. And there's something new that's happening where data shouldn't go all the way back to the cloud or to a data center just to make a decision right there in the factory or in a car. It actually should be sitting on-prem very close to where those things reside for some of that, what I'll call hot analytics that happen very quickly. An airbag is a good example I mentioned in the keynote. You don't want an airbag to go off because it went to the cloud and it sent a trigger for it to go back. You want that to be in the car. So we're going to provide on-prem solutions for that set of data that needs to happen locally near the edge.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you so much.